So, just before we start, I'll point out I have created a selection prior to the video, just not to bore you. If I look at what that selection is, it's roughly the inside of the castle. Some areas I was precise, some areas I left an edge, but along this outside edge, I know it's going to be a tough area for the calculations to get. So I went ahead and did that. You can see up here I made it pretty precise, and then down through here I was just keeping everything that I know that I want to see. It gets hard to do when you're working just on the mask. And then I saved that as a selection, which creates a mask, and I named that internal area. Oops. So let me zoom out. Before we start, I usually create a background copy just so I have a backup in case I make a mistake. And the first thing I want to do is apply a calculation. So we go to Image and Calculations, and you're looking for a channel that creates the best contrast. You can mix the channels. So I may want to try red and green, red and blue. Typically, it's not a rule, but I typically find blue and blue works the best. You can change the blend mode as well. You can use multiply. Darken sometimes works. Color burn works. In this case, color burn looks a little better than multiply. Burns down a little bit more. If I look at linear burn adds a little too much gray in the sky for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and use color burn. And that'll create a new channel for us. You can have that setting. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You see it creates this alpha 1 channel. Now this alpha 1 channel, I'm going to load my internal area using control and selecting on it. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill that with black. So that gives me a good start. Next thing I'm going to do is hold Shift and L because I want to adjust the levels. So Shift and L, it's Control and L. And now I want to whiten my whites. And that looks pretty good about right there. Every image will be a little different depending on the histogram. And remember, when you do this, so a lot of people will take this alpha channel and duplicate it. So I'll be working on an alpha 1 copy and then apply their levels. In case it ends up not being as good, you have the original go back to. Just another safeguard. So now obviously I have some things to clean up in here, and this is just a manual process. I'm going to grab my brush. I'm going to leave it set to normal right now, and I'm actually going to crank it up to 100%. Make my brush a little smaller, and now I'll be using my tablet. And in the areas that are obvious, I'm just going to go ahead and paint these black. That's why I'm not being overly cautious. I know I want that to be all black too. Okay. So now if I zoom in, up in here you see we have some cleanup, and this is just manual work. So if I go back to my brush, make that quite a bit smaller. You can set this to overlay mode. And now that I'm painting black, overlay will not paint white onto, or the black into the white. It's only going to work on my darker tones. So it doesn't make it perfect, but it does fix a lot of it. So just move down through here. And you'll see we have some fringing along this edge. We'll fix that in a minute. missed a little up here. And if that's not getting it, but I know it's in a safe spot, I can then just come up here with a regular brush set normal and paint that in. Maybe a little dot right there. Scroll back down. I know this is all in an area I don't have to worry about. And it's a little brighter, so the overlay mode won't work as well. Let's go back to overlay for a minute. Where's my overlay? There we go. Make my brush a little bigger because I can be a little more generous. Paint that down. And I'll get what I can and then go back with a normal brush. So this will take, I may end up speeding up the video through this area so you're not bored. Oops, wrong way. Undo. Yeah, we'll do it the other way. We'll do it with burn. Just burn that down a little bit right there so it looks a little better. Go ahead and burn that down and notice there's some weird edges. Burn that edge. Alright. So we're cleaned up around that side. We just have this side left to do. Let's dodge, clean that, clean around that. And we need to go back to normal because I made a mistake there. Just paint that in. Back to overlay. my dodge. And that. Back to my brush. The rest of that looks okay. So there's my castle. Now in these trees, there's a little bit of gray still in there. At least it appears to me. So I'm just going to grab a big brush. I'm going to set this just down a little bit. And I'm just tapping. I'm going to tap down the side here. Tap in the trees. Tap in these trees. Just make those whites, those edges a little crisper. That should be good. Okay. So now that we've got that, we can go back to our RGB. We can load this alpha copy. Remember, it was the alpha 1 copy that we were using. Load that as a selection. And then on this layer, mask it. And then we need to invert the mask. So there's our cutout. Before we load a background, what I like to do is also just grab a solid color and let's make it black. Okay, and I'm going to put that below that. And I'm looking for color fringing. So you can see that there's still some blue in here. And that's just typical. So one thing that I can do is I can come up here on this mask, say select and mask, and turn on decontaminate colors. And I'm going to say OK. Now when I come back, it creates a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and throw the old one away. But you'll notice there's not nearly as much blue. So that makes some nice clean edges. I'm also going to make another copy of this, and I'm going to apply this mask. So now if I turn this off, I have this layer with just transparency. The reason I do that is because I want to also defringe this, and defringe can't work with a mask. So once I have this layer of just the cutout, I can go to layer, matting, defringe. And on this image, I'm going to go 3 pixels. And you'll see what you'll notice what that did if I undo it. There's still some white edges. If I apply it again, 3 might have been a little strong. Let's go back and do that again. So I undid that, matting, defringe. Let's just go 2 pixels. Wow, that might be too much as well. Matting, defringe, 1 pixel. Yeah, I think 1 works okay. I don't see any white outline, so I think we're okay. If you did still see a white outline around your image, you can use matting, remove black matte or remove white matte, and that'll help in some instances that the defringe doesn't. So now we need a background. I believe I used this one in the original image, so we'll go ahead and open it. Yeah, this is the one I used. Let's go ahead and just drag that over. You can see it's quite a bit smaller, so when I scale this up, it's going to get a little grainy. But we'll take care of that. Scale this up. Let me hit Control-0 so I can see it all. And I think we'll just leave it there for now. Let's go ahead and put it underneath that. It doesn't look too bad. Let's go ahead and close that background. So I'll just leave it there. And actually that looks fairly decent, except it's not color balanced. So what I'm going to do is take a copy. I'm going to throw this color fill away. Keep my file as small as I can. I'm going to make a copy of this. I'm going to move it to the top of this and then clip it. Doesn't look any different right now because I haven't done anything to that layer. First thing I want to do is go blur and average. Well, that looks like hell, right? But then we're going to turn that to overlay. And you can see that helps color balance it to the sky. I could stop there. One thing that I like to try, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, is I'll make another copy of this, put it on top, clip it, apply another blur, but this time a Gaussian blur. And I'm trying to smooth all the edges of those clouds. So you need to play around with it depending on the image. And about 107 looks good to me. And then I'm going to put this in soft light. Now it looks bad down here, but I'm only really worried about it on the building right now. And if I knock down the opacity on that to about 50%, it's not too bad. Create a layer mask, grab a black brush, add that on overlay. It's not going to affect it. So now, let's undo that. Now I can turn my opacity down. And I'm just going to take some of that too heavy a glow off of that. Right, I'm going to try to get some out of that corner there. So now if I look at this, just adds a little more depth to that image. And I think that would pretty much do it. If you wanted to make your image smaller, you can obviously now delete that layer. I could get rid of the extra background. You can actually throw away these alpha channels now. They do make your image larger. So I can grab that and throw it away. That. Oops. No, I don't want to delete the layer mask. I guess I could have. So hopefully that helps. I don't know. Might brush out a little more of that yellow on the front. So hope this was helpful.